406.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 411 from 406. My name is Chewie, and I am joined once again by my brother from another mother, Mr. Pip. How are you, sir?
I couldn't be happier. I'm exactly where I need to be right now. So much fun. So excited for tonight. It's been a little while, and we haven't talked in a little while, have we? It's been a
We
few
we
weeks.
we have not, and this is the first podcast of 2025, which is
That's right.
super cool. So
Yes.
Happy New Year.
Happy New
We're
Year to
sitting
you
here
as well.
sitting here on January 30th as we record this. The last episode, which was episode 96, we recorded on December 26th. So we have not, at least with the listeners, have not caught up since the new year.
Ah,
I know you and I have chatted and traded a bunch of messages and those kind of things. I have to be honest with you. I was thinking about you the other day, and I think about you often, but I I do. I do.
hopefully only in the
But
shower.
well, of course. But I was just thinking like how cool it is that we live in this age where we can text or FaceTime or message, like on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, even when we got out of college, that wasn't the case, right? It was like, we would chat, I don't know, once a month, maybe once I mean, it wasn't that often. And it's like these days we talk every day, whether it's a text or just like hey, look at this stupid meme or an Instagram message or whatever. I don't know. I just thought that was really kind of cool. So
Oh
we're very
no,
lucky with living in the age that we live in, I thought.
I agree 100%. It's awesome. It's the tech. This is the upside, I think, of the technology that we have that we're able to live in these days is that we're able to use it to communicate very easily with each other in ways that, I mean, back in the day when you and I graduated college, we didn't have easy access to all this stuff like we do today. Like there were, text messaging wasn't as prevalent as it was. There was no such thing as memes or anything like that. So we had to call each other, and we did that, on occasion. But it's just so much easier to keep in touch the way that we are able to do now, and it's awesome, and I love it.
Yeah. So I sent I sent you and Jeff Tyler that cousin Eddie Van Halen thing, which as soon as I saw that meme, I had to send it to you guys. I was laughing my ass off.
It was pretty funny. It was a little heartbreaking, but also only because it hit so close to home. Because
Yes.
there were definitely some times in Eddie's later years that I feel like he was a little closer to cousin Eddie than he
Yeah.
was to actual Eddie, which is hey, you know what? That's topical. We should let's let this segue into a conversation which I think is super fun. We had one of our favorite Van Halen albums turn 30 years old. This I think it was about a week ago, right? It's Balance.
Yes.
I believe it came out on January 23rd back in what year is it? 2025. All right, so 30 years minus I'm doing all the math. It's 1995 that
Yep.
this album came out, and you and I and Jeff Tyler, speaking of, had a very formative conversation on this album and how important it was to us, and we ranked all the songs from back to front with with great conversation and a tiny bit of debate, but mostly it was a really great chat that we had about this album. And I've actually really, it's funny because I've kind of picked up listening to this album again as of recently with all the hoopla around the birthday. And I started listening to Feelin'. I couldn't let go of that song. And I'll try not to overindulge because I know that we talked about that a lot. But Feelin' is one of those songs. It's the last song on Balance that I've always respected, but never really just like really grabbed onto. And I've listened to some other podcasts and some other people talk about this, and the conversation around how impactful that guitar solo is, like it's really, really good, and how powerful the lyrics are. I think it stands out as one of the greatest songs on that entire album. And I just wanted to shout out, Balance for its 30th birthday, as bittersweet as that album is, because it was the beginning of the end of the era that I think you and I both really love about Van Halen, which includes Sammy Hagar. And it was the last really, really great album that they did, I think, in my opinion. They've had some good stuff since, but this was fantastic, top of game. And yeah, I loved it. And I thought about you as all this discussion around this album was happening. And I'm so grateful that it got brought into my life because I love it so much.
Yeah, I did sit down, and I think we've talked about it on the podcast actually several times now. Like I don't sit down and listen to albums very often these days, kind of beginning to end. And I actually did, if it wasn't on the day, it was a day, or either, a day before or a day after. I did sit down and listen to Balance front to back. And I did not go back and listen to our conversation with Jeff, which was episode 89, if you want to go back and listen to it in the archives. But I do remember having that conversation. And I think as I was re-listening to that album, I think the three of us were really, and again, we didn't agree the entire time, but I think we were spot on with kind of what we liked, what we didn't like. I thought that conversation was really interesting about just kind of like, what you would pick up on that I didn't, or Jeff, or
Yeah.
vice versa. And I agree with you 100% on Feeling. That has always been one of my favorite tunes on that album. The other thing, kind of Van Halen centric, that I wanted to chat about. I have seen, how we chat about social media and all these kind of things. The algorithms are, I'm always fascinated by what I'm seeing or what I'm not seeing, right? And I don't know if it's because of that 30th anniversary. I think it's probably a combination of a bunch of things actually, but I have seen so much, not only like Balance era stuff. I've seen a ton of interviews lately with Sam, that I have never seen before, not just current stuff, but like older stuff from that
Nice.
era.
Nice.
I've seen a ton of stuff with Alex, like current stuff. Obviously, he's promoting his book and those kind of things. I don't know. It's just, it really, I know Sammy is not a saint in all of this, but it's just like I can't help, and I am totally biased pro Sammy in that kind of like Sammy v Ed v Dave v Alex conversation, but I just can't help to shake just a sadness around the way that is now. You know what I mean? Like it just so bums me out. And I realize that most bands, when they end, they don't end well. So I get that. But it really hit me over the last couple weeks when I've been, again, going back, seeing a lot, like I've seen a lot of Van Halen stuff across multiple feeds, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, like all of them. And it's just such a bummer because it really paints a negative picture about the ending of that band that, I mean, I have always said is like my favorite band of all time. And it's just such a bummer. Anyway, yeah, I don't really have an end to that, but it was just something that I've noticed over the last couple weeks.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I very much relate and connect to that because like you, Van Halen is well, it is my favorite band of all time. Like there's nobody that will ever top that band. And the gateway into that band was the Sammy Hagar era for me. And when you go back to, the 5150, time frame and you watch, if you're a Van Halen fan, you've most certainly seen the live concert video called Live Without a Net, which is a fantastic recording of a show that they did in New Haven, Connecticut. And you watch these guys and they're bouncing around the stage and they're dancing and they're smiling and they're cheesing from left to right. They're drinking. They're so excited and everything that they're doing is just on fire. Everything is top notch. And you look at that and you're like, wow, these guys are best friends. Like you can tell that there is a sincere connection between these four guys that are on stage. And to see it start like that, and then unfortunately, 9, 10 years later, end in sort of a ball of flames, it really is heartbreaking because I think that they had a really great thing. And I don't, I can't say for sure what it all was. I don't know if it was.
Hi,
Good night.
Lauren.
Good night. That's hey, look at that. My wife made a cameo on my podcast. Um I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was time took its course, or if it was just a matter of maybe these guys weren't really all that close, in the end. I don't know. If it was egos, it was most certainly egos. It was Sammy's ego, it was Eddie's ego, it was Ray Daniels, who was the manager that came in on the Balance album and kind of really screwed everything up. Because if you remember, which you probably do, Sammy Hagar had a manager in the band named Ed Loeffler, and Sammy's manager was Ed Loeffler before Van Halen. So Ed and
Even like in
Sammy,
Montrose, right?
yeah,
It-
I don't know if it went back that far. It's a great question,
okay.
but
Yeah.
certainly in Sammy's solo, I Can't Drive 55, One Way to Rock days, Ed Loeffler was Sammy's manager. And when Sammy got hired onto Van Halen, he brought Ed Loeffler with him, and everybody really liked him. And Sammy was kind of sort of the de facto band manager, right? Like, I mean, Ed Loeffler was the band manager in title, but like Sammy was the one that was calling a lot of the shots in the band, which seems kind of strange, but it was actually the truth because he just had a really good business sense about him. And then Ed Loeffler ended up passing away in, I think, early to mid 90s. I don't know the exact time frame of cancer, unfortunately. And it really took a number on the band. And the band's manager after that was Ray Daniels, a guy who had a successful career as a band manager with bands like Rush and other prog rock bands like that. He also happened to be Alex Van Halen's brother-in-law. So he was brought in and immediately rubbed really negatively with Sammy. And from that, that's kind of what I think that I don't think that was the thing, but that was really one of the things that pushed that band over the limit. And then, of course, they ended up splitting up, and it was really heartbreaking because I felt like they were onto something really good. I love the Balance album. I love the way it sounded. I loved the song Human Being that came out after Balance, which was on the Twister soundtrack. Like things were going all in a super positive direction. And then they split and they went their separate ways. Sammy did his solo album. Gary Sharon came into Van Halen, and then Van Halen 3 came out and was just critically panned. The fans didn't like it. It was basically an Eddie Van Halen solo album at that point. There was no production done. There was no producer on that album. There was a guy who was credited with the production, but he basically let Eddie do everything on his own. And that's why I think it sounded like it did. So, this is a long, long roundabout way of saying I agree with you. It's heartbreaking because it was so much fun. When it was good, there was nothing more fun than Van Halen. And the fact that they just could never seem to get their shit together is really tragic.
Yeah. I was was Mikey on that album, or was he already replaced at that point?
So that's a good question. So what's really interesting about Van Halen 3, which I believe is what you're asking about.
Yeah.
So there was this guy named Mike Post. Mike Post is the guy who came in as the producer for Van Halen 3. And Mike Post had no real credits to his name other than television music. I think he did like
I
some
was going to
Miami.
say he did the A Team
He
way
did,
back in the
and
day.
Miami
Yes.
Vice, I believe, and all kinds of
Okay.
things like that. But I don't think he had any really uh, if he did have some rock and roll credit to his resume, I don't think it was anything very profound. So he came in and he basically, what's interesting is in the last year or so, he came out and said, this was Eddie Van Halen's solo album in so many words. Like Eddie came to him because Eddie wanted to make this album clean and sober, which was a really valiant effort. And the problem was is that Alex at the time was going through some pretty serious shit, some a divorce. He was going through some alcohol addiction and all that. So rumor has it, and I believe this, Alex Van Halen only played drums on maybe one track on that entire album. Eddie
Oh wow.
actually did all the guitar, all the drums, probably a lot of the bass. Mike probably played a lot of bass, but I don't know how many times, if ever, you've ever listened to Van Halen 3, but there is virtually no Michael Anthony on that album, especially in the trademark vocals that he was known
Okay.
for. So the only thing on that album that is, I should say, the only song on that album that definitely involves Alex and Mike is their one single called Without You. And otherwise, the rest of it is really an Eddie Van Halen solo album with, Gary Sharon singing on it. And even Gary, who I think is an incredibly competent vocalist, he sounds terrible on that album. Like that album is just very, very poorly mixed and produced. Like it sounds like a demo. If you know what a demo sounds like versus a completed album, like that entire album sounds like somebody's demo. And I think that's honestly Mike Post letting Eddie Van Halen do what he wanted to. That was his solo album, essentially. And I mean, this is all sort of things that I've gathered over the years on that, and it's heartbreaking. It's a really it's a tough album to listen to, given all the circumstances. But yeah, it's really difficult.
Yeah, what one of the interviews that I ran across recently, and it was great. I'll see if I can dig it up in my history. It was a relatively recent interview, within the last couple of years. It was Sammy interviewing Gary Sharon and Nuno.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was awesome.
yeah. That was
And
on his
they're
show on
yes.
Access
Okay, so
TV.
you've seen it then. Okay, so
Hmm.
you've seen it then.
Because they perform
Um,
the Who's "Won't Get Fooled Again" together,
oh, do they?
and
Okay.
it's
Okay.
fantastic. Yeah, watch that whole thing. It's really, really good.
Yeah. So is that like recent or a couple years?
That's probably within the last 5 to 7 years. So
Okay.
it's
Okay.
fairly recent, but I don't, Sammy hasn't done that show, I think, in a little while.
Okay. In a
So
while.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah. So anyways, it was interesting. I wanted to kind of make sure that I talked about that on the podcast because it was like, again, I've just seen and heard so much Van Halen stuff recently. Again, that it was, like it really sprung to mind. I was like, oh, like I noticed it. How about that? It wasn't just
yeah.
like kind of normal stuff. So
What's interesting about Van Halen 3 is that up until that point, like every single album that they did up until that point had some merit, right? Like whether you like the lead singer or whether you like the fact that he was playing keyboards versus guitar, like you could find something off of everything that they had done up to that point and say, okay, like maybe I'm on board or maybe I'm not, but I get it. And it's still Van Halen. That album was the beginning of the end for that band for sure, because it was so divisive and it was just so unlike anything that they had ever done. They absolutely demolished a lot of their fans as a result of that.
yeah.
It's unfortunate.
While you were chatting, I just looked up. Ed Leffler died in October of 1993.
Hmm.
So yeah, so you're right. That's
After Carnal
if the bounce.
Knowledge.
Yep, if the Balance album came out in 95,
Yep.
yeah, that's yeah. So
Yep.
okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. I will never forget going to, was it the Den, to get that
Oh,
album, to
yeah.
to get the Balance album on opening night.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
And I will never
was
forget going into your dorm room before we roomed together and watching you watch that show in Pensacola and thinking like,
yeah,
what is this? Like I had heard of Van Halen, but I'm just sort of like, yeah, whatever. Like that's the band that sings Jump. And I don't know, from not too long after that, I got hooked, and it absolutely it to this day still is the biggest influence on my musical love forever.
awesome. What have you been watching? Anything good?
I have been watching something I've really liked, and I'm a little
Yeah.
embarrassed to admit it, but I'm going to admit it, and I think it's good, and I want to encourage other people to watch it who haven't given it a chance. And you know how much I love comic book stuff. You love comic book stuff, so that's certainly not strange. I started watching the show called Superman and Lois, which was a show that was
Okay.
on the CW, and I think it just recently wrapped up after its fourth season, and it doesn't really have anybody famous in it that I know of. The guy, I'm trying to even think of the guy's name. I'm not even sure I know the guy who plays Superman. I don't know anybody in the show. There's only one famous actor that I remember, and she's an actress. Her name is Emmanuel Shriequi, I think is how you pronounce her last name. You would know her from the show Entourage. She was the very attractive brunette from that show. Um, it's really interesting. So, Superman and Lois is a show, obviously, about Superman that takes place in, I guess, what you could say Superman's older years, in that he is married to Lois Lane. He's had two children, and he decides to move to Smallville. And it's a story around what it's like when his kids grow up and they're teenagers, And eventually they find out who he is. He has to come to terms with that. And one of them has powers and, how that whole thing affects all of their lives. And, it's interesting. It's a really interesting take on Superman that I've not experienced before. And I gave it a shot because this new, I think the last time we talked about the Superman trailer, the new James Gunn one, and I
Yep.
was I was a little excited about that. So I'm like, well, I'm just in this mode where I'm kind of absorbing that kind of content. So I started watching this show. It's on HBO or Max, I guess is what we call it now. It's on that streaming service, and it's really good. It's interesting. It's so if you ever watched Smallville, it's not quite like Smallville in the sense that Smallville was very derivative of Superman. It borrowed a lot of music, it borrowed a lot of cameos and all that stuff. They don't do that in the show at all. They make it their own thing, which I think is really great. And the special effects are sort of very modern day, so they work really well. The guy who plays Superman and Clark Kent, I think he's really talented. I don't think it's a we've talked about Clark Kent versus Superman and how you have to play both of those roles. I don't know that he plays Clark. I don't think they really try to play that role in a way where he's trying to disguise himself super hard, right? It's not really that.
Yep.
So if you can just kind of take that and put that out of your mind, it's good. I really like it. I would definitely recommend it if you have a superhero itch that you need to scratch. I would say check this show out for sure.
That's interesting. I'm looking at um, Wikipedia. The guy's name that plays Superman is Tyler Hoechlin, Hoechlin, who I
Hmm.
don't. And so I'm looking like through his television credits, and he's been playing Kal-El slash Clark Kent slash Superman in like multiple shows. So he was on 6 episodes of Supergirl, two
Okay.
episodes of The Flash, an episode of Arrow, and 2 episodes of Batwoman, Legends of Tomorrow, and then Superman and Lois. So I guess my
Hmm.
question to you, and maybe you don't know, like that sounds just reading that one guy's like IMDb for lack of a better term, it sounds like they've created like an entire universe of shows. Is that a fair statement?
I think the CW did, yes. They had the Flash, they
Okay.
had this version of Superman, they had their own sort of self-contained multiverse. And I haven't watched all of that stuff. In fact, I haven't
Okay.
watched any of it outside of this Superman and Lois show. So I can't really comment on how good that is, but I will say that this show is really good, and you don't need
Okay.
to watch anything else to know anything about this show. So you're not losing anything if you kind of start fresh on it. But yeah, I really enjoy it. It definitely it's entertaining for me, and I don't know. I'm not sure. I would love to get somebody else's perspective on it because I'm not sure if it's just you know me being a fanboy with some of the Superman stuff or
Sure.
not. But I like it. It's good.
Is it Superman centric or is it Clark Kent centric?
I would say it balances them both really well, to be honest. I mean, I don't think you ever see him as Clark and believe that he's not Superman, if that makes any sense. Like
Okay.
he's Superman and Clark are basically kind of the same person, but the split between who he is as a superhero and who he is as a father with his family, I think is really well done. And that's what I really like about the show is that
Okay.
they mix those parts of it really well, but it doesn't turn into a sort of a 90210 kind of drama like Smallville did. That was very much 90210 with superhero flavor to it.
Okay.
This isn't
Okay.
quite like that. I mean, they definitely get into some teenage storylines and things like that, but it doesn't feel overly, pushed on the audience,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
That's interesting. Okay. No, it's good to know. I don't watch a ton of TV, but I'm always looking for like that next thing that I can sit down and watch. So,
It's pretty cool.
um,
What about you? Have you seen
yeah.
anything lately? Have you been watching anything?
You know what? Again, with it being basketball season for Grayson, we don't watch a ton. We finished up the latest season of Emily in Paris, which is super lame, but it's like a show that we actually sit down and enjoy. You know, we can watch it together. We did sit down and watch. I watched Beetlejuice.
Oh, what'd you think?
Uh, I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. I had some issues with it, but like overall, I was very happy. I went into it not thinking we needed a sequel, right? Or
Sure.
like, yeah, what do we really need this for? That kind of
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's still fair. I think that's still a fair critique, but it was. I thought there was enough fan service. I thought they stepped right back into that universe, quote unquote, very well. That Tim Burton, I thought they did a really good job. I thought they were really clever with the way they handled Jeffrey Jones or the lack of Jeffrey Jones in that movie. Who,
That
if you
was
don't know
something
the
we
actor,
talked about here, didn't we? Didn't
we, well, I think
I
you had
did
seen
because
it.
I
Yeah,
had seen it and
yeah,
I said
you
I
had seen
thought
it.
it was really weird how reverent they seemed to be to that character, but yet Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis were
Didn't show up. Yeah,
basically a footnote to that whole thing. I don't
yeah.
expect them to show up necessarily or be on camera, but like Jeffrey Jones's character was referenced pretty heavily that whole time, and I thought that was an interesting choice.
It was. It was an interesting choice, but I thought they did it really well, right? Like, I mean, there are if you're not familiar, Jeffrey Jones is the character was the dad in Beetlejuice. Charles Dietz, I think, was the character's name. And spoiler alert for Beetlejuice, like he dies at the beginning of this movie off screen. You don't see him, but you see him in death. If you know the Beetlejuice movies, like you see the character, and they've done a really good job of. It's clearly not Jeffrey Jones, and they don't have to show his head. There's a reason they don't have to show his head, so you don't see him. But it's clearly a voice actor that is mimicking his voice. And you're right. I mean, it does. They do show an awful lot of reverence to that character, and you're right. It's weird. The exclusion of Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin is strange. It's very weird. And I don't know why I can only imagine that was a financial choice, right? That for whatever reason, but then they go out and they got Monica Bellucci and they
Yeah.
got Willem Dafoe
Yeah,
and they got
right.
so I don't know.
And Justin
You know,
Theroux and
and
yeah,
just yeah,
interesting cast
I
of characters, but
yeah.
they wouldn't pony up for the two main characters from the first
Yeah.
movie.
Well, if I had to guess, I mean, Alec Baldwin still was at that time that film was being made, was in a
Yeah.
bunch of legal trouble. So like
Yeah.
maybe they didn't even bother calling. Gina Davis kind of surprised me a little bit, and maybe they figured if you don't have Alec, you can't get Gina, right? Because there's no reason to have one without the other in that
Yeah.
in that story, right?
Well, that's fair. And also, like, they died in the first movie.
Well, that's what I'm
So,
saying,
in
right?
theory,
Yeah,
they wouldn't age or they wouldn't visually
that's true.
age.
Yes.
And you can't really, I don't think you can de-age Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis today to make them look similar to what they did without it being really distracting. And, I mean, sometimes they do that well, but most of the times it just doesn't, it kind of takes you out a little bit, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, I would agree with that, especially Alec. But like Alec Baldwin is like, this is gonna sound weird. He's like a good looking older guy,
It was a
but
great
he
looking
looks,
older guy.
but he
Great looking.
looks, yes, but he looks so different than he did back then, right? Like if you look at him from like the Beetlejuice or the Jack Ryan Hunt for Red October days, it doesn't even look like the same person.
Oh yeah,
You know
for
what I mean?
sure.
Like it's
Very different.
yeah. I mean, he's like totally pulled a Charlotte Flair where he doesn't look like the same human being. It's a nerdy wrestling reference, but
That is
yeah,
funny. Well, yeah, because I kind of feel like Alec Baldwin used to be kind of he always sort of presented as taller and skinnier, and now he's
yeah, and slender, yeah,
shorter and squatty. And I mean, hey, look, we all gain weight as we get older. No
right,
judgment there, but
right,
like it just he definitely presents differently these days
yeah,
than he did. So yeah, maybe it wouldn't have made sense to put him in there, but
yeah,
from a storytelling perspective, like they were a very integral part of that first movie. So to take them out of it was, a little bit jarring, but it was
yeah.
okay.
But overall, I enjoyed that movie. I thought Michael Keaton did amazing. As
Sure.
Beetlejuice stepped right back into that character, and again, you don't have to worry about his age or what have you. The last scene really kind of bummed me out. It kind of took me out where there's this like wedding dance waltz musical kind of
Yeah.
scene, and I was just like,
No.
what the fuck is this? But other than that, yeah. But other than
Yeah.
that, I enjoyed it. What else have we been watching? Believe it or not, we Amanda and Link and I, my little guy, we've been watching Deal or No Deal Island,
Oh,
which is a combination of Deal or No Deal and Survivor,
okay.
which is I know you're not a big like uh game show guy, or at least I don't think you are, but that show is better than it has any reason to be. You know what I mean? Like we've been enjoying that. And again, it's just kind of stupid, turn your brain off stuff.
Nice.
I don't think I haven't gone. I have every intention. I think I even talked about it on the last podcast of going back to the movies. I haven't done that yet, only because Grayson is in basketball season. His last game is scheduled for February 18th. So once that is done, then I'm going to have some weekdays back to go
Sure.
out. So
Well,
yeah.
to be fair, I don't think there's been too much out recently. I mean, I think our summer's going to be lined up to be pretty interesting, but so far this year, it hasn't really been all that much.
Yeah, the only thing that I actually wanted to go see was Nosferatu, and I just didn't. I just never got around to seeing it. I
I
had
did
one
see that
day.
actually.
Did you?
I
Now,
did.
first of all, was that in black and white or no?
No, it was
It's
not
not.
black and
Okay.
white.
And from so I listened to the Now Playing podcast guys review of that movie, and I've read some other stuff. It's like it sounds like it's a pretty gory, like pretty brutal take on that story. Is that a fair statement?
I would say that there's not a lot of gore, but the scenes that are gory are pretty explicit. Yeah.
Over the
But
top?
it's
Okay.
not like a front to back, like this whole movie is just tearing throats out kind of thing. Um, I liked it. I thought it was a really good movie. It was not what I expected, but I also have never seen any of the previous versions of this movie.
Okay.
And this director is kind of known for doing this kind of stuff in terms of like older period pieces and things like that. But yeah, it stars, Johnny Depp's daughter who does really well in this, and Nicholas Holt, who is going to be our new Lex Luthor, is really good in it, and everybody puts out really great performances. I would say, and is it Bill Skarsgård? I can never remember the Skarsgårds. There's so many of them. The guy who
I
played Pennywise is the guy who
that's
plays.
Bill. Yeah.
That's Bill. Thank you. I thought so. He plays Nosferatu, or the antagonist in this movie. It's not Nosferatu. I think his name's
It's a
Orlok.
count, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he does a great job. Everything is really good, but it's a bit of a strange movie. I mean, it's not exactly the way that it ends. You kind of have to kind of think through it a little bit, but I liked it ultimately. I saw the trailer like months ago and I thought this movie looks fucking amazing because it was really scary, and the trailer was like just from another planet. It was so good. And so I was hooked from months ago to wanting to go see this, and it didn't disappoint. I thought it was really good.
Okay. Good. I will see that one. I like I said, I just ran out of runway, didn't get a chance to do it. So
Yeah.
um what again we haven't chatted since New Year's. What did you guys do anything good like New Year's Eve? Did you have a party? Did you stay home? Would you do anything good?
No, we were all sick
Yeah.
here.
Oh,
Unfortunately, the wife had the flu and I had a really bad sinus infection, and we just stayed in. And after a holiday season of a lot of get-togethers and all kinds of stuff going on, I couldn't have been happier to go to bed at 10 o'clock on New Year's Eve. It was just the greatest thing ever.
yeah.
So, no, it was pretty lackluster. It was not that eventful. What about you though?
We were here. We ended up we made dinner. We did fondue for dinner, which is actually the second year in a row we've kind of started this little tradition where, we did like a cheese course, and then we did the main course, and then we did dessert with chocolate,
Nice.
and and it's like if you ever had fondue, it takes forever to do it, right? And it's like, well, on New Year's Eve, what are you going to do, right? So we started at 7 o'clock, and we ended up eating dinner, and dessert, and probably till 10 o'clock, and then what football game was on that night?
Oh, that's a good question.
Were the Buckeyes on that night? No, no. Penn State was Penn State playing Notre Dame that night?
That wasn't New Year's Eve. No, that was no,
Penn,
because that
Penn State was playing though, because that was the game that I
okay.
wanted to watch. Penn State was
Boise
so it must have
State,
been
is that who they
yeah,
played?
must have been whoever they played before they played Notre Dame. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Or and
So
was that also the Arizona State Texas game? I'm trying to,
yeah,
or
I
was
don't
it
remember. Yeah,
who's the yeah, I'm blanking out.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't remember that. I will say that as far as, current events since the beginning of the year, since we talked last, the Notre Dame Ohio State game was a pretty crazy game. It was a tough game to watch. I turned it off at halftime because I
did you
couldn't.
really?
I had to. I couldn't watch it anymore because at that point Notre Dame was up, or I'm sorry, Ohio State was up 28-7, and I'm just like, it's over. And me being a Notre Dame fan, somebody who's watched them for 40 years, I know how this story goes, and I know when they go up that far, they're just going to get absolutely hammered. So I turned it off, but I still watched the score a little bit on my Bleacher Report app, and I saw that they came back. So I scrambled downstairs in my underwear after my wife had passed out, and it was the fourth quarter, and they had brought it within 8. So it was a one score game at that point. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. I was very, very excited. And that was about the time that Jaden Smith, is that his name,
Yeah,
caught that extraordinarily long pass on
fourth and
third
whatever
down. It
or
was,
third one.
I think it
Yeah, yeah,
was, I think it was third, but yeah, because Notre Dame had them third and deep, and they just
yes,
chucked it and they got it, and it was, I mean, hey, all credit to them. Like as much as I fucking hate Ohio State, and I loathe Ohio State more than anybody, they were the better team. They deserved to win that game. I can't not give them that credit. But man, Notre Dame came back and they almost made it. And I know a lot of people hate Notre Dame, just like a lot of people hate Ohio State. But Notre Dame, I just feel like they became a lot more likable this year because their coach is really good. Their quarterback, whether you like him or not, he's not great, but he had a really good year. And they fought so hard to beat Penn State. They fought really hard to beat uh shit, I'm blanking out. Who else did they win? Georgia.
yeah.
Um,
Beat Georgia. Yeah,
some really great wins, a win against an SEC school as well as Penn State, who was really good, just didn't have a great game that year or that weekend. And yeah, unfortunately, they just ran up against a Ohio State team had a $20 million roster when Notre Dame had 7 of their starters on the bench because of injuries, some really significant things. But I was really proud of the Irish. I thought they had a great game. They had a great showing. In years past, when Notre Dame would make a bowl game and they would get blown out, everybody would say, Notre Dame sucks and they're the darlings of the media and they should never have been there and blah blah blah. But you can't say that about them this year because it's a playoff system. They did what they were supposed to do. They beat IU, they beat Penn State, they beat Georgia. They had a really, really, really great postseason after a very successful regular season, and I'm just really happy. I'm really happy for them, and I hope that that means good things in the near future.
yeah. They're going to be good next year too. They I don't think they lost a ton. They've got and to your point, they had a bunch of people injured. It's next year's going to be fun because I think Ohio State is going to be down. I mean, compared to this year, um, Penn State I think is the team to watch. Penn State is going to be really good next year.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I mean, it was I didn't really have a rooting interest in that particular game. Um, because I'm like, I'm not even though I live in Ohio, I'm not an Ohio State fan by any stretch. Being a Hoosier, and it was, I mean, for somebody like me who was just kind of watching to watch the game. It was an amazing game to watch, right? Because it
Sure.
was, you get the first half where Ohio State goes up, and then it's like, oh shit, like is Notre Dame coming back? There were some great games. I think we chatted about this a little bit on the last pod. There were some really good games in the playoffs this
Oh
year.
my God, some
Um,
great games. Yeah. Some of them were
so yeah,
pretty unbalanced, but like that Arizona State Texas
there were,
game
yeah,
was like one of the best college football
phenomenal.
games I've ever watched. It was
Yeah, yeah,
insane how close that was and how exciting it was to watch.
yeah. So I'm really optimistic that the NCAA is doing some good things. I think they'll probably tweak their playoff system a little bit, but I think they're on the right path for sure. Um, and I'm like you. For as much as I don't really like Ohio State. I mean, what that team did to win the national championship is really kind of a historic run. I mean, the teams they beat, they went through Oregon, they went through Notre Dame, they went, and they were stomping people with the exception of Notre Dame. Um, you can't really, you can't, the only blemish that they have really, right? They lost to Michigan, which that's just in their mind, I think, more than anything, because they're a better team than Michigan, obviously.
Right.
I really feel, and we might have touched on this too. I feel bad for Oregon. I mean, Oregon was the number one team in the country from the rip, and they got a brutal schedule going through the playoffs. Um,
I mean, yeah,
and
but at the same time, like they only
yeah,
played what, two games or no, it was Ohio State, the only game they played in the playoffs, right?
yeah,
Because didn't they
yeah, it
get a
was.
bye the first round? So
They did.
I'm
Yeah,
not crying about who they got. I mean, look, I mean, Ohio State was they were a really good team for sure, but Oregon was number one throughout the whole year, and Oregon beat Ohio State already this year. So
yes,
they're
yeah,
really, I don't feel bad for Oregon. I
yeah.
personally, I don't, just because I think when it comes to the playoffs, I mean, it's the best teams win. That's what
Well,
happens.
you got to beat who's in front of you, right? I mean, like
Exactly.
that's the way it is,
Exactly. People
and
said the
that's
same thing about Ohio State. Like,
what.
wow,
Yep.
what a shitty bracket that they have in front of them. But Ohio State didn't even win the Big Ten championship. Like
Yeah.
they, so
Yeah.
I think they have a
Well,
lot of work to do with the seeding and all that kind of stuff, and
yeah.
they'll figure that out. I think the number of teams in the playoffs is the right number, and if they can figure out the seeding and get that stuff settled, then it'll be a much more fair thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people just keep bitching.
What one last thought on college football, and then we can move on. I think
Mm.
it is really cool that the only two teams that the Indiana Hoosiers lost to this year were the two teams that were playing for the national championship. I think that's pretty cool. So
I
for
think
what
that
it's
makes,
worth.
I think, no, I agree. I think that makes them look really good. I still don't think they're as good of a team as maybe they're advertised to be, but it's really
Well,
good for their resume that
yes.
they had such a good season, and the only two teams they lost to were the two teams that played each other in the national championship.
Yep.
So
Well,
yeah, it's great.
and again, it's like all they can do is play who's in front of them, right? And
Mhm,
it's like
mhm.
that's what they did. They beat the teams that they should have
Right.
beaten, and arguably they lost to the two that they shouldn't have.
Yeah. It's
So
not like they avoided anybody. They
no,
didn't have that option. So
right.
I agree. Yeah.
So let's see. It's we've been chatting for almost, I don't know, call it 50 minutes here. And so
Okay.
Larry, if you're still listening, now's the time to probably turn off because we're going to talk about wrestling. Okay. So
Just a little bit. We have to because it's very timely. So, Larry, I am sorry, and anybody else, Dave, if you're listening, whoever's out there, I do apologize for this, but it's very timely. We have to talk about this because the Royal Rumble is this weekend in none other than Indianapolis, Indiana, and it is as depressing as it is that I cannot be there with my brother from another mother and his brother also from another mother.
yes.
Um, it's I'm very thankful that I get to experience this with my daughter. She's going to absolutely lose her mind. It's going to be such a fun weekend, and I can't wait. And it's going to kick off tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. I'm going to pull my daughter out of school and take her downtown Indianapolis to meet Rhea Ripley and get an autograph, or not an autograph, but a meet and greet. So we'll get a picture with her, and it'll be super fun. And that's how the weekend's going to start. And then we're going to go back downtown on Saturday and we're going to enjoy the Royal Rumble, which starts at 6 p.m., which is pretty awesome.
Does it really? Does the
It's an
Rumble actually start at 6?
Yes, yes. I don't think I don't think that's a pre-show
That's not like
start.
a pre-show. Oh,
I
wow.
think
Okay.
that's when it actually starts. So double check me on that one. But yeah, I'm so excited. It's going to be so much fun. What do you, so this is coming up this weekend. Have you given this any thought? Like, I don't, you and I haven't talked in a couple weeks, so I don't know how tuned in you are with everything. And I want to know your perspective and your thoughts on what you feel like is going to happen in the Royal Rumble. Like what, I mean, it's so outrageously anybody's game at this point. Like, what do you think is going to happen this weekend?
I don't know. And again, I know you and I have said this multiple times on the podcast over the year. This is without a doubt the greatest time to be a professional wrestling fan from now until April.
Yes, yes.
Like it is the road to WrestleMania. Like shit gets going now. I mean, I've got some fantasy booking thoughts, but I don't, I'm not a gambler, so I don't know. Um, I guess at the top, tippy top of the, well, okay, let's take a step back here. Um, what has been announced for the card? You got two Rumbles, you got Cody and KO, and what else do you have that has been announced for the card? Let me pull it up here real quick.
That's a good
I
question.
should I should
I
know off the top of my head, and I just don't.
I don't. There's most certainly a women's match of some kind, but I don't think it's Rhea because she just wrestled at the Saturday night's main event.
Okay, so the only four matches that Wikipedia has is the men's and women's Rumble, Cody and Kevin, and then DIY and DIY versus the Motor City Machine Guns. 2 out of 3 falls for the WWE Tag Team Championship. That's the only
Oh,
thing that has been announced.
okay.
So you might only get maybe one more match, right? I mean,
Maybe,
like
maybe
because you figure both Rumble matches there that's an hour a piece,
at
right?
least. Yes.
Every bit. So right there, you got 2 hours. You probably got 3 hours just with the four matches that they've got on the card. So you might not get any more matches,
Yeah.
match wise. So the announced wrestlers, again, this is coming from Wikipedia. LA Knight, John Cena, CM Punk, Jay Uso, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Rey Mysterio, which I missed that one. That's crazy.
Hmm.
Sami Zayn, Shitsuke Nakamura. I didn't do that on purpose.
I could tell by your face you didn't, but it was amazing because we always call him shit stain.
Logan Paul, Penta, Chad Gable, Braun Breaker, and Carmelo Hayes. So the 10 out of 30.
Right.
And then on the women's side, Nia Jax, Bailey, Charlotte Flair, Naomi, Bianca Belair, Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, Lyra Valkyrie, Ivy Nile, and Io Sky. So
Okay.
okay,
So
so
let's
yeah,
talk the men's match because
yes,
I don't think, well, first and foremost, I don't think anybody thinks that Kevin Owens is going to get the title from Cody Rhodes. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that Cody Rhodes is going to take the title at WrestleMania. So that being said, the Royal Rumble, the men's Royal Rumble, has
yes,
to be somebody who is, well, I mean, it doesn't have to be somebody who's going to challenge Cody. It could be somebody
could
who's going to
challenge
challenge
Gunther.
Gunther.
Yeah.
So I challenged you with this earlier today. I said, I want us to have a conversation about who we think our final four are going to be. So the last four contestants of the Royal Rumble, and I'll play dumb for a second and say if anybody doesn't know what the hell we're talking about, the Royal Rumble is a match. It's the name of the pay-per-view, but the Royal Rumble is a match where two competitors start in the ring, and every 90 seconds after that, another person comes in, and then you have to eliminate somebody by throwing them over the top rope. And whoever ends up the last competitor in the ring wins the Royal Rumble and a chance to challenge either champion at the forthcoming WrestleMania. So that's an important factor because, if Cody wins, then it's most likely going to be a heel flavored character who is most likely, but not necessarily,
Mhm.
going to win the Royal Rumble. So tell me who you think, if you had to pick a final four, like who do you think the last four people would be in the ring? And then who do you think's getting their hand raised at the end of everything?
So in my mind, there are three that are very easy,
Mm.
like three off the top of my head, quick.
I think you
Those
and I will
three,
probably share those. I
yeah,
think.
those three are John Cena, CM Punk, and Roman Reigns.
Absolutely,
I think those
100%.
yes,
Yes.
I think those three are almost like you can pencil them in. Now, I could be wrong. Like you might get some weird thing where Roman Reigns gets eliminated like second, and then they set up some, whatever.
Sure,
But if
sure.
I were a betting man, those three. So then you kind of go to that next tier, right? That's guys like Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Sami Zayn. That's probably, do you, Undertaker is not going to be in there, like these kind of guys, like I don't think you're going to get like a legend that's going to come back and make
Oh
it to
no.
that
No,
final
no, no.
four. I mean, they might show up, but you're not going to get them, being in that final four. I think that last one, it could be a guy like a Logan Paul. It could be, like that kind of thing. Um,
Yeah. That's a
you know, it
strong
it
possibility.
so then I kind of start to think, okay, well, who's Gunther feuding with? It could be a guy like Randy Orton. You know what I mean? So like that fourth one, I'm not really sure. Those first three, I'm pretty, you know, they might try to elevate somebody like a Braun Breaker into that spot, and I don't know. Um, I don't really know who wins because I've got a scenario in my mind where all three of those guys, my top three, where all three of them could win, and I could make it make sense. Um, I almost don't think, and again, this is on the caveat that you're correct that Cody retains, so Cody would be the champion going into Elimination Chamber and or WrestleMania. I don't think they're going to put Roman and Cody at the top of WrestleMania again. I don't think they're going to do that.
Mm.
The other person that we haven't talked about, you might see The Rock in the Royal Rumble. That
I
would
don't
be
know.
that.
I
I
would
don't know
love
either.
to. I would
Yeah,
love to. I
yeah.
don't think that's going to happen.
I,
I
I can,
really,
here's what I will tell you. I think you'll absolutely see him in Indianapolis. You will absolutely
you
hear
think so?
1,000%. Yes, you
Really?
will
Okay.
100%. And it might just be like he comes out to start the show, but you will absolutely, in my mind, you'll hear that theme song kick in. I absolutely think you'll hear it. Um,
Ooh, that would be
yeah.
fucking heavy.
So to now that I'm talking through this, here's where this is what's going to happen. Here's how Roman doesn't make the final four, or here's how he's eliminated. The Rock eliminates him. Whether he's in the match or not, The Rock
Mm,
eliminates him.
I like
Because
that.
that's how because I fully believe you're gonna see Rock and Roman at WrestleMania. That's what I think is gonna happen.
Okay. All right. I mean,
With
I would love to see that. I feel like the fans would love to see that. I think The Rock has intentionally not committed to that yet. And
Oh, I know.
I
I
don't,
think I think The Rock's playing us all.
he might be, he very well might be. And I hope that he is because right now I have a very sickly feeling about him actually being there. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think he's
Okay.
going to be there, but I hope I'm fucking wrong as much as possible because him being in there would be amazing, and him being in the Royal Rumble would be insanity. Like the crowd would go
Oh,
nuts.
they'd go ape shit.
It would
All
be
right,
insane.
so continuing on my fantasy booking,
Hmm.
if Roman isn't the winner, and again, let's just say Rock is going to eliminate him, they'll start that program. So that leaves of my top two, that leaves John Cena and CM Punk. Um, I I would love more than anything to see John Cena win a Royal Rumble. I don't think. Well, I don't know. I was gonna say I don't know that that would be credible, but like the Rumble is a kind of match where like a somebody like not the best wrestler could win that match, right? Because there's so much fuckery that goes on.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? Like he could win that match. Um, man, I don't know. I guess I'm biased because I really want to see John Cena win another world title. That's what I
Yes,
want to see.
for sure.
And so for in order for that to happen, he's got to either win the Rumble or he's got to win Elimination Chamber.
And he is already billed for Elimination Chamber. So we should go into it with that in consideration.
Okay.
Like, why
Okay.
else would he be there if he wasn't, not necessarily he's going
Yeah.
to win, but why would he win the Royal Rumble and then go to the Elimination Chamber? Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Now remind me, how does the Elimination Chamber work? Is it the winner of the Elimination Chamber is the champion or they get a
No,
shot?
they get a shot. I think they get the shot at the other belt or something. I don't know exactly how it works, but
Okay.
essentially, the Royal Rumble winner gets the heavyweight title or the Royal
Their
Rumble winner
choice.
gets
Yeah.
their choice, and then Elimination Chamber gets their choice as well. And of course, because this is all
Okay.
fakery, they'll draw it out the way that they
They'll
want
choose
to.
the other one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how it works. That's
Um
that's what I understand.
I, I think you're going to see CM Punk win the Royal Rumble. I think that's I don't know and I don't know how you get there, but I think you're going to see him win that because he was number 2 last year and he was injured and
Hmm.
he has never main evented a WrestleMania and
Hmm.
that's like his goal. He's always and I just don't think they bring him back into the WWE and without having that like planned. I think he's going to win the Rumble. I don't know who he's going to fight. I don't know if it's going to, I mean, right now it would be Cody. I, but I think he's going to win the Rumble. If I had to pick right now, I would pick CM Punk.
Okay, that's interesting. That's really, really interesting because I have put a lot of thought into this, and I feel like I do my best to keep up with the live shows and the dirt sheets and all that stuff. And my final four is very similar to yours. I have Punk and Reigns and Cena. My fourth one is this is a bit of a cheat, but it's a question mark. I don't know who it is. It could be Logan Paul, it could be Sami Zayn. But here's what I think. I think that Punk is not going to win the Rumble because they seem to be telegraphing that considerably right now. They seem to be really uh, amping up the whole angle, they seem to be really advertising, hey, Punk's never won a Royal Rumble and Punk has never main evented WrestleMania. Like they're spoon feeding it to the wrestling audience in a way that makes me think that they're trying to convince everybody he's going to win the Royal Rumble, but he's not. So I don't think he's going to win. I also don't think that I mean, he may very well be in the Elimination Chamber as well. So maybe between him and Cena, one wins the other. I don't know. But I kind of think that Roman's going to win the Royal Rumble.
Do you?
I
Okay.
think if you're making me pick my final four, it's either going to be Roman or it's going to be the mystery contestant that I can't quite identify, whether it's Logan Paul or it's somebody like that. I kind of think that now is the time that WWE may choose to completely fucking swerve people and pick the one person that shouldn't be there, but that person's going to get a title shot. And that person may not choose Cody necessarily. Keep in mind
Hmm.
that that person can choose Gunther. Um, it could be anybody. It could be Penta. I don't think it's gonna be Penta, but it could be Drew McIntyre. It could be Seth. I don't think it's
How
gonna be
about
Seth Rollins.
how about Brock Lesnar?
I thought about Brock Lesnar. I
I
don't
I
think you need
think
to give him a title, and I think it might be a little bit wasteful to put him in a title
I
match in
I think you see
WrestleMania.
I think you see Brock Lesnar at the Rumble though.
Do you think so?
I think you do. Yeah.
There's a lot of room for mystery contestants in this thing. I think you see some TNA guys probably because they just reached that agreement with them.
Who's this guy? Is it Joe Hendry that
Joe
they keep
Hendry.
talking about?
Yeah. You not know Joe Hendry? I mean I've never seen him wrestle, but like he's got the you just look him up. He's got the cheesiest like
It's
intro and all
amazing.
this stuff.
It's amazing. I
But
think
it's
he's like the TNA world champion, isn't he? I'm pretty
uh
sure. I think
I
he
don't know
is.
where he is right now, but I will say that he is. Yeah, I think he is. I think you're right about that.
It's an awesome
But
theme song.
well, he's gotten a lot of promotion from that. Like
Yeah.
people seem to love him and they really gravitate towards him. So I don't, he's not going to win the Royal Rumble, but I think very, very possibly we're going to see him there. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be Reigns. I don't think they're ready to give up on Reigns. And if they don't let Roman win the Royal Rumble, what are they going to do with him? Like, I guess they could send him to a final bloodline match against Solo or something. But we can't forget, we still have the Paul Heyman CM Punk agreement thing that hasn't come to
Right.
play yet. And I don't know how that works itself out, but I do think it works itself out in 2 days. I do think it
You think
happens at the
so?
Royal
You
Rumble.
think it's
I do. I
yeah,
absolutely do.
yeah,
Maybe
see,
not. I mean, it could happen at Elimination Chamber, but I honestly, I think something is going to come to the table in Indianapolis this weekend.
yeah, again, this is why it's an awesome time to be a wrestling fan. Again, I really think we're headed towards Roman Rock. I now what I agree. I had forgotten about the Paul Heyman CM Punk
Yeah.
thing. Like initially when that happened, my initial thought was Punk was going to ask Paul to turn on or screw Roman,
I still
and
think that's possible.
Paul was going to do it.
I think that's still
That
possible.
yeah. Um. I don't know how Rock would potentially, come into that. I don't think I don't know that Rock necessarily plays into that. God damn, I can't wait. I'm so excited. Because it's just there's so I mean, there's so many permutations, there's so many
Yes.
feuds that can come out of it, there's so
Yes.
many twists and turns that they can take. Um, oh, I saw today that they announced Triple H is the first entry into the Hall of Fame, which like he's already in as a member of DX, but like that if anybody deserves it, that dude deserves it.
Oh, for sure.
I'm like this sounds super lame, but I'm really happy for him. Like I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's awesome.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw
100%.
yeah. I posted the video where they were doing some sort of a press conference, presumably it was for the Rumble. And Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker showed up, and it looked like Triple H was surprised. Like it
Oh,
looked
he
like
had
he
no
didn't even know
idea.
what was. Yeah,
When you saw
and
his
it was
face
really cool.
kind of
Yeah, it was
look
cool.
to the
Yeah,
side when Shawn
yeah,
Michaels music hit, he was like,
yeah,
what the fuck's happening
yeah,
here?
yeah. So that was cool. But again, it's like and of course the WWE Hall of Fame is not just about what you do in the ring. It's kind of everything. It's kayfabe. It's everything you do in the business. And if there's anybody that deserves that accolade, it's
Yeah.
Triple H because that dude is what he's doing now since Vince has been gone in the Netflix era, a very tumultuous era. I mean, the product that we're seeing, I think, is some of the best it's been in years. I mean, it's been
Oh,
really, really good.
it's next level to say the
Yeah.
very least.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I agree
Did
100%. And I think
yeah.
that obviously he's being recognized for his in-ring career and his talents there. And for sure. It's long overdue, and we knew it wasn't going to happen unless somebody kind of forced it because he's never going to put himself in there.
Right.
So it was great that whether it was Nick Khan or whoever it was that made it happen, it's going to happen, and that's great. And I'm sure it's going to be semi awkward yet semi amazing induction speech when it comes time.
Yeah. Did you watch main event the other night? I did. I was in Florida, so I was traveling for work, so I didn't see it. Was it any good?
I saw some of it. It was fine. It was not something that I feel like you need to go back to watch. I don't think there was
Okay.
anything that happened from a storyline perspective that is super impactful. I mean, we already skipped past that and did the what was the did they do the contract signing between Cody and Kevin Owens on that? I mean, whatever it was, I can't
Yeah, I
remember
don't
if it
know.
was that
Wasn't
or
yeah.
if it happened on Raw following that. But no, I mean, ultimately, it wasn't a bad show by any means, but nothing significant from a story perspective changed that I
Okay.
would recommend you go check out.
Okay. And I think we talked about it. It does kind of bum me out that they had another main event so close to that last one. Like that
Yeah,
last one was kind of a big deal, and again, it's like whatever. It's effectively another pay-per-view, but it just kind of feels like a house show a little bit.
yeah,
Now there was a title match and a signing and this that and the other thing. Um, oh, I just realized you're seeing that title match between Cody and that's a that's a ladder match, isn't it?
that is
That's
correct.
awesome. That's
That is
super
a
cool.
ladder match straight out of WrestleMania 10, I think. When Razor and Sean
Razor
fought
and
for
Sean.
the duplicate titles and all that stuff. Yeah, it's basically the same. I mean, there Kevin Owens isn't necessarily claiming to be the champion, but he took
Oh,
that
but
belt
he's got.
from
Does he have the
Cody.
winged eagle still?
He does, and he
That's
carries it around
awesome.
with him everywhere. So
That's
that's
awesome.
what we're going to see is the winged eagle, and the modern day world title hanging in the rafters. And my daughter and I are going to get to see Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes do that ladder match at a major league pay-per-view like
That's
this.
really exciting.
Super
Did
excited.
did you did you get tickets yet? I know that you had last time we talked. You had not.
I did. I got them yesterday
Okay.
actually.
Okay.
So they opened up some other seats yesterday, kind of last minute, which is not unexpected. They're not great seats. I mean, they're like in a football stadium, they're like 400 level, when you've got
Okay.
the 100 and 200 levels on the bottom, and then three, four in the middle, and then six on the top.
Yeah.
This is like a 400 level seat, kind of in the corner, so it's not great. Not as good as I would like it to be, but considering I've got to get two tickets, and
Yeah.
this is, I'm a little nervous. I feel a different vibe from this show. I don't think this is going to be one of those shows where they're going to have really good seats available at the last second. I just don't because of, John Cena being there. I just think
Yeah.
it's going to be a huge event, and Indianapolis doesn't get these kind of events very often. So as soon as I found something that I thought was a reasonable price,
Yeah.
reasonable seat, I just grabbed it. As much as I would love to wait till like the very last day just to see what
Yeah.
they got. It's insane how expensive these tickets are. I mean, the when I was looking on StubHub for them, the the service fee for each ticket was like $90. $90
Ugh.
per ticket. So when I had put two $225 tickets in my cart, I was like $650 all in when
Ugh.
taxes and service fees and all that stuff were included. So, fuck Ticketmaster up their stupid asses, which I'll say for
Yeah.
the rest of my life. But I found something that I felt like was much more reasonable. So got the tickets, got the meet and greet scheduled for tomorrow night, or I'm sorry, tomorrow early afternoon. I'm going to pull my daughter out of school and I'm going to take her
That's
downtown and
awesome.
meet Rhea Ripley for about a minute and a half.
Yeah.
And we'll get a picture with her and it'll be great. And it'll come and go super quickly. And then we'll go back downtown on Saturday for the show. So very excited.
That's that's really cool. That's oh, dude, I'm so excited for you guys. I cannot wait to see the pictures that you send me and the videos. I'm sure you guys you have so much fun. Did I tell you that we are going to the Raw after we're going to Raw on Monday night?
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is
So
so the
Mark,
Monday after the Rumble?
yes.
It's in
Yeah.
Cleveland?
So it's in Cleveland. Yeah.
Oh,
So
nice.
Mark got his corporate loge for that night. So
Ooh.
yeah, so we're gonna be sitting yeah, so it's I can't wait. It's gonna be so much fun. And again, it's like that's the Raw after the Rumble on the
Yeah.
way to WrestleMania,
Oh,
right? So
that's
it's like, well,
huge.
yeah,
There
so
might not be a bigger event to attend.
I mean it's either that one or
Non-pay-per-view.
yeah, it's either that one or the Monday after WrestleMania, right? It's like that's the one. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm pumped. So Grayson and I are gonna go, and Mark is gonna take Everett, and we're gonna go down and we're gonna enjoy the Raw after
Oh,
WrestleMania.
that's awesome.
Um, do you have any thoughts on the women's Rumble at all? Like, is there any? I like Charlotte Flair's gonna win, right? She's coming back, or is it gonna be Becky Lynch?
I think it could very well be Becky. It's going to be Becky or Charlotte. That's what I think.
Yeah,
Becky's not officially announced, but I'll be shocked if she doesn't show up.
yeah,
Charlotte has officially announced she will be there.
yeah.
It just depends. If Becky doesn't show, it's 100% going to be Charlotte, and then it's going to be Charlotte and probably Rhea in WrestleMania. I'm not really sure. I
Yeah.
think that would be a good story, like a rematch for the title,
Yep.
because when
Yeah, for sure.
Rhea won the title for the first time, it was from Charlotte, if I recall correctly. So
Yep. I think that's correct. Yeah.
I would say that match is going to be kind of uneventful, if I had to guess, but still fun. But yeah, I'm banking on Charlotte for that one.
I am yeah. Again, we already chatted about it. I was going to try I was trying to be there this weekend, and I've got some family stuff going on. Scarlett,
Yeah.
my niece, had a play tonight. Link's got one this weekend. He's got like 4 performances. So I couldn't make it happen, but
That's all
I'm
right.
super excited. It was 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago today, that I was in Indianapolis to watch the Rumble with you.
Yeah.
And so it's like I get a memory, memory pops up on Facebook or what have you. So I'm really pumped. I cannot wait for this weekend. It is arguably my favorite wrestling weekend of the year,
For
even
sure.
more, even better than WrestleMania. I love WrestleMania, but like the Rumble, it's
Yeah.
like the
It's the
anticipation.
buildup.
It is. It's yeah, god damn, it's good. It's a good time to be a wrestling fan for sure.
It's a great time. And yeah, it's unfortunate that we can't share this one, and we probably won't share WrestleMania either. But
Fucking
I'm gonna
Easter. I mean,
I'm
come
gonna
on.
I'm gonna hold you to this. I'm hoping that next year, 2026, when we both turn the big silver 50th, you and
Yeah.
I need to fuck off to wherever WrestleMania is
Yeah.
going to be and spend a weekend there and get tickets and go both nights, because there's going to be 2 nights and it's going to be
Yes.
expensive and it's going to suck, but it doesn't matter because it's our 50th birthdays. I feel like that's what we need to really focus on. That's going to be amazing if we can make that happen.
I agree. Let's see here. I'm looking at WrestleMania. Let's see this. So this is WrestleMania 41
So they
coming up.
haven't
Is that
announced
correct?
it yet,
Right.
but all the rumors are pointing very strongly towards New Orleans right
New
now.
Orleans. That's
Yeah,
right.
that's where everybody's saying. They're saying maybe Indianapolis, but probably not for another year after that. And quite frankly, if we're gonna do this up, if we're gonna have some fun, I don't want it to be in Indianapolis. Let's get out of here.
Yeah,
Let's get the fuck out of
Louisiana be
Dodge.
yeah.
You know,
Louisiana be pretty good. That'd be fun.
that'd be amazing. New Orleans
Yeah.
is so much fun. So I'm hoping we can make that happen.
So, all right. Well, this has been good. We came into this episode like with nothing to talk about,
Yes, very
and we talked
unprepared.
for yeah. So, I am. Oh, okay. Real quick, we shared a couple text messages about this topic, and I'm we didn't talk about that. We didn't prep this, so you're not gonna know what I'm talking about. Um, you floated the idea of having a wrestling specific podcast, right?
I did.
So, so I thought about this. I think that's a great fucking idea. I think that's an amazing idea. And here's why, right? Like on this podcast, again, we let Larry, like we told him we were going to talk about wrestling, and like, but this way we could tell him, hey, just listen to the 406 if we're going to talk about blah 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 blah. And
Right.
if you want to talk about just wrestling, don't even bother listening to this podcast. But if you love wrestling, listen to this.
Yes.
I think that's kind of amazing.
It could be really fun. It might be a little bit of work because it would be two podcasts and then the wrestling one. I mean, we would have to keep up with it, right? We'd have to, we'd have to watch every single episode of everything, but we'd have to be, if we're going to, do this on a regular basis, we'd have to kind of
Yes.
keep up with what's going on. Obviously, there'd be a lot of fan booking and, um, you know, fun stuff to do that doesn't necessarily some conversation that doesn't revolve around what the current events are. But I started thinking about it. I'm like, gosh, I know a lot of people have a wrestling podcast, but also it would be super fun to just dedicate some time to just talk about that because it clearly leans towards that in a lot of our shows,
Yes.
right?
I,
So
yeah, I agree. So let me ask you this. I need a way to go back and watch a lot of that stuff. Right now that's on it was the WWE network. Now it's on Peacock. What's the timing to get like the quote unquote WWE network on Netflix? What does that look like? Do you know?
it's a good question.
And I guess the other question is like, is everything going there? Like, am I going to be able to go watch every pay-per-view on Netflix the way I can on Peacock now? Peacock. Sean Waltman, Peacock.
There you go. There you go. I don't know. I'm not sure the exact
Okay.
timing. What I know is that I think all pay-per-views moving forward are going to be on Netflix. So the Royal Rumble this weekend, go to Netflix instead of Peacock. That's what I
Oh shit,
understand.
is that right? I didn't know that. Is that
I
right?
I think that's true. I think all the
I better fucking
major
find out where I'm going to watch the show.
yeah, well, Netflix is a little easier to access than Peacock anyways. So I mean, who doesn't have a Netflix subscription at this
Yeah.
point? But um I think Peacock may maintain some of the archival footage for a while, but I don't know that they'll show any of the new pay-per-views. That's my understanding. I could be wrong, but do a quick Google and figure that out.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. But yeah, I want to be clear though. If we do start a wrestling podcast, I would love it not necessarily to be to talk about all the current events. I mean, I would like to talk about current events, but I would like it just as much to go back in time and talk about some of the older stuff, talk about older WrestleManias, SummerSlams, Rumbles, our favorite wrestlers, our favorite, fan booking between today and yesterday, all that kind of stuff. I think there's a lot of potential there that could fill time for us.
So I'm glad you said that because I was thinking about that. I don't particularly want to do a current events podcast because for two reasons. One, to your point, there's a shit ton of those out there. Secondly, I don't have the time to sit and watch like
No.
I just don't, right?
Yeah.
But what I would fucking love to do is go back and I just got goosebumps thinking about this because a lot of the wrestling, like a lot of those pay-per-views that we talk about, old WrestleManias, old SummerSlams, old Rumble, like those kind of things. A lot of those that I watched for the first time, I watched with you when we did that 5 for 5 in Bloomington. Like I never watched any of that. Like I never watched that stuff live.
Yeah.
And I think it would be fucking awesome to go back and be like, hey, for the next, I don't know, umpteen weeks, we're going to do we're going to watch every Royal Rumble from 1988 to whatever.
Yeah.
We're going to watch every SummerSlam, every
Yes.
WrestleMania again. We talk about WrestleMania. Let's, every Survivor Series. We're gonna go back. Like, I think that would be fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Kind of the way, and again, we're not gonna do it to the way like Conrad does, but
Sure.
hey, like that. I just think that would be really fucking cool. And then that if we do it that way, we don't have to stay current. we can do it like once a month. However, I don't know. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's some fun stuff we could do there, and same. I'm on the same page as you. Like, I don't want to do a watch along. I don't want it to be a 3 hour
Yeah.
episode, but I think we could both watch these things and maybe watch them separately, and let's talk about the matches. Let's talk about what was going on in the business at the time, as far as we know, and how all that stuff sort of came to pass. And I think that would be super interesting based off of what we know. I think we should mix in or sprinkle in a little bit of what's going on modern
Sure.
day, and
Absolutely.
talk
Yeah.
about like what we did today, right? The Royal Rumble, and our favorites for the Final Four, and who's going to win and all that kind of stuff, and fan book, all day long. But ultimately, to pay homage to the past, as well as what we're seeing in the present day, is where I think that could be really helpful. And it would take a lot of time out of these podcasts right here. We'd have to figure out some other stuff to talk about, but I love that idea.
Sweet. So here's what I will ask you to do.
Okay.
Come up with a name. Come up with a name for that podcast. You don't have to do it now.
I'm already working on it.
Are you?
I've got
Yes.
I've got a few working titles, and I'm not going to share them here, but I've got a couple things.
Cool. And yeah, so I'll tell you what, you come up with the name, and I'll task you with coming up with the theme, and I'll take care of the setting up the platform and the podcast I'll take care of that. And I'll tell you what, so we can we commit to launching this in 2025? That's fair,
Yes,
right?
I think we
That's
can
fair.
definitely commit to this year. We've only got 11 months to figure it out. So if we can't, then we just fucking suck at our jobs anyway.
Well, that's fine. All right. Well, hey, this is episode 97, so we're marching towards 100.
It's amazing.
I know we chatted about, like, let's do some deep dives, this, that, and the other thing. I have a feeling we're going to talk about wrestling, whether it's on this podcast or the new untitled one coming, in the next couple months. There's going to be wrestling. Sorry, Dad, Larry. It's still here. Once we get through April, there's no more wrestling, right, on this podcast. But
right.
oh, dude, I'm pumped. It's the best time of year to be a wrestling fan.
It is.
Oh, hey.
So much fun.
Hang on. I'm going to show you something.
I see John Cena, and I
John
see
Cena.
this trophy mocking me.
Yes. No, he's not. He's not mocking. He's lovingly. He's sitting here in Cleveland.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, he needs my name on his chest more than he needs your family's name. So
yes, he does.
We'll work on that.
We'll work on that. All right. That said, this has been awesome. That's Mr. Pip. I'm Chewie. This is the 411 from 406. We'll talk to you soon. There's a lot of great wrestling coming up. The best time to be a wrestling fan. Aloha, bitches.
Adios.